Now let's talk about understanding percents, and in particular how to convert between a percent, a fraction, and a decimal. Because percents, fractions, and decimals are all different ways of expressing parts of a whole, and depending on the situation, it may be more useful to do one or the other. By definition, percents is a fraction out of 100. Way you can remember it is there is the word cent in that. So if, for example, 75% means 75 out of 100, which is the same thing as 75 cents, aka 0.75, because that is the hundredths place value that the 5 is living in. And depending on the situation, one of those might be more useful than the other. If I was talking about 75 out of 100 people felt this way about this particular band, I might express it like a fraction like that. If I said you have a 75% in a class, that means you've done 75% mastery. Percent would be what I would use there. Versus if I said something costs 75 cents, I would probably use a decimal in that case. So it's really good to be able to convert between them. In order to convert between them, if you're going to convert from a percent to a decimal, there's kind of two different ways you can think about it. You can do the shortcut of, if I have 75%, I can picture there's a decimal here, kind of after the 5, and then I move it over 2 places to the left to come up with 0.75. I can also literally do the division of 75 divided by 100 to represent the fraction 75 over 100, and that will also get me 0.75. So that's always a reliable way to do it, especially if you have a calculator. It's a 5-second way to do it, that you take the percentage and divide it by 100. That will give you exactly that percentage as a decimal. If you're moving from a decimal to a percent, the best conceptual way to do that would be the other way around. So if I have 0.75 and I multiply that by 100, I'm going to get 75%. Alternatively, I can do the shortcut of you move the decimal 2 places to the right when you're going from the decimal to the percent to get from 0.75 becoming 75% in that case. Either way is fine, whichever one floats your boat. Doing the multiplication and division formally is less prone to error, but if once you've done enough of these, you'll get a feel for just move it either 2 places, the decimal 2 places to the left for percent to a decimal, or 2 places to the right for decimal to percent. If you have a percent that wants to become a fraction, you're going to do the definition of a percent in order to do that, because in particular, we know that by definition, 75% is 75 out of 100, and then you can simplify the fraction from there. You can know, in both 75 and 100, 25 go into both. 75 divided by 25 is 3. 100 divided by 25 is going to get me 4. That's going to be 3/4. Similarly, in the case of 20%, that's 20 over 100. Divide both the top and the bottom by 4. That will simplify to 1/5. All the different ways that you can do that. If you're going to go from a fraction to a percent, there you want to actually formally do the division, which will turn it into a decimal, and then you can turn that decimal into percent. Alternatively, you could take the fraction and convert it to a fraction out of 100. In the case of 3/4, you would multiply both the top and the bottom by 25 to get 75 out of 100. And that would work too, whichever way floats your boat. If you have access to a calculator, it's probably just going to be simplest to do the division associated with the fraction and then convert that decimal to a percentage. So let's practice that a bit systematically. So if I'm going to just convert from a percent to a decimal, so 37%, remember that's 37 out of 100. I can picture there's a point after the 37. Move a 2 to the left, that would be 0.37. Also, I can think conceptually in terms of place value. 37 out of 100 would be expressed as 37 hundredths. Similarly, 3%, that is 3 hundredths. So that would be 0.03. If you were going to do that the shortcut way, it might help to stick a couple of zeros out in front of the 3, and then you would want to remember to move it over 2 decimal places. Word of caution that you will want to always put that 0 in front, because sometimes people forget about that and they would just write down 0.3. 0.3 is 30%, not 3%, so be careful. Similarly, if I have 8.5%, I can do the same sort of thing. Move that over 2 places. And then I would get, I actually messed up doing that 2 places. Be very, very careful about how you're drawing that. Move that over 2 places, 0.085. Similarly, if you were to do 8.5 divided by 100, you would get the same thing. You'll notice with that extra decimal there that you would want to then convert that to being 85 over 1,000. So if you're going to do that more the fraction way, you can always stick an extra 0 on the bottom and then move the decimal over 1 place to the right. Or just do that division on your calculator too. That totally works. Then we can also move the other way around. And for moving the other way around, I actually think the best conceptual way to do that is to sort of think about what fraction this is actually corresponding to, this decimal. Because 0.42, that means I've got 42 hundredths, which means this must be 42%. You alternatively could also just move that 2 places to the right. Same thing with this next one. That would be 145 thousandths. So that would be 14.5%. Or you again could move that over 2 places to the right. You also could formally do 0.45 times 100, and you will get 14.5. Similarly, for 1.11, if I were to do 1.11 times 100, that would give me 111%. I also could think that this is basically 11 hundredths plus another 100 hundredths for the 1 to again get that this is 111%. Or move it over 2 places to the right. Regardless, you get 111%. And then this is just kind of a summary of exactly what we sort of talked about with this whole set of 3 videos all about decimals and percents. So you want to make sure that whenever you're writing and plotting and thinking about decimals, that you think of those definitions of what those various place values actually mean in terms of fractions, right? So like the first place value is going to be your tenths place, then your hundredths place, then your thousandths place. You can always rewrite numbers and think about their conceptual meaning. For rounding with decimals, it works the exact same way as it does with whole numbers. You look to the digit to the right and round up if that digit is 5 or up, round down if it's 4 or below. For operations with decimals, you want to make sure for addition, subtraction, and division that you have everything lined up in terms of place value with that decimal. For multiplication, you don't care about lining up the numbers per se, but you need to move the decimal place at the end to that many based on how many numbers were initially after the decimal. Big picture wise though, with all of those operations with decimals, you should be thinking through just quick sanity checks to make sure that what you get as a result is in the ballpark of what you would get as a result of adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing the closest whole numbers to those decimals that you're working with. And for converting between percents, decimals, and fractions, you want to think about how a percent by definition is a fraction out of 100. So you can always multiply the decimal by 100 to get the percentage, and then you can always divide the percentage by 100 to get the decimal, or you can convert them to their fractional meanings if you want. In order to do a fraction to a percent, it's probably easiest to actually just convert it to a decimal by doing that division, then multiplying by 100.